We thank you for this group of patriots that are out here tonight on such a beautiful day that you've created. We just thank you for everything that you've done, you've given to us. Help us to be your hands and feet in this community, in the state of Iowa. We just want our freedoms restored, and we can't do without you. So we just turn to you, Father, and we ask that your blessings are on tonight and the work of our hands from this day on out, and just be with these candidates and legislators and help them to always keep focused on you, because you are the answer for everything. We love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. We're fortunate to have Jim Carlin here. He's running for Senate the second time, correct? Second? Going to give him hell this time?
That's the plan. Where would you like me? Does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys look old enough that you remember Ronald Reagan. Remember that fella? Okay. One of his things that I kind of want to talk to you tonight about is, what did he say? He said, government isn't the solution to the problem. Government is the problem, right? Well, my name's Jim Carlin. I am from Sergeant Bluff, Iowa. I've been married to my girlfriend for 30 years. She was my very first client. We raised 3 kids. We have 3 grandkids. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I served in the State House, in the House and Senate for 6 years, and I've maintained a law practice in Sioux City for 34 years. My faith is what defines me. It's what defines my wife. I have a deep faith in Jesus. I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. And I don't apologize for that, like some people do. I believe that our fundamental rights to life, liberty, and happiness come from us, from God, and not government. And I think the government's job is to secure those rights, which, I think our founders believe that. I think they were right about that. But each one of us has a unique story and a unique mission that I believe God called each one of us to a mission. Remember the Blues Brothers and Jake and Elwood? They were on a mission from God. And I mean that in a tongue-in-cheek way, but something? I think God really does have a mission for us, right, Steve? So my mission, if you want to call it that, and I do, kind of, began in 2001, way before I got into politics. It was a Friday night, and I get a call at 5 o'clock, and I'm just getting ready to go home for dinner. And this lady on the other end of the phone says, I want to sue Planned Parenthood. And I said, well, so do I. Why do you want to sue Planned Parenthood? And she said, I had an ultrasound 8 weeks ago, and they told me I wasn't pregnant, and I found out just today I have 1 week to have an abortion. And I thought, wow, how do I talk this lady out of this? So I said, could I ask you a couple questions? And she said, yeah. I said, have you ever thought about adoption? And she said, no. I said, well, is the main thing economic? And she said, well, my husband just left me with 3 kids, and I have a job at the pizza place down the street, so money is a problem. And I said, well, I got a proposal for you. I don't know if you're going to take me up on it, but I'm going to make it. If I were to help you out with $500 a month till you have that baby, and 3 months after you have that baby, would you take me up on it? And she said, you would do that? And I said, yeah, come, I got a check for you, come get it. She was there 10 minutes later. And I handed her the check. And I said, I'll see you next month. And the next month came and went, and she didn't show. And I thought, we lost that baby. But a year later, I get a thank you note in the mail. Beautiful thank you note with a picture of a little baby girl. She gave that little baby girl up for adoption. That little baby girl was part of a family on a farm in Nebraska. And you know, when I saw that, I thought, man, did that really just happen? Because I thought, if I don't ever get to do anything else in my life, at least I got to be part of that, right? So it's 15 years later, it's 2016. Like President Trump, I decided to run for office. And I'm door knocking around Morningside in Sioux City. And I knock on this one door, and this guy answers the door, and he gets all enthusiastic, and he goes, Jim! And I have no idea who he is, which is a little concerning. And he says, come on in. And he welcomes me into his place and says, here, stand right over here. I'll be right back. A couple minutes later, he walks in with this girl. And she looks at me, and she looks so familiar. And I looked at her, and I go, you look really familiar. And she said to me, Jim, I'm Kathy. And I realized, you're the mom. You're the mom. And we both started to cry. And she said, I want to show you something. So she marches me in to the kitchen, and on that refrigerator door was a picture of a 15-year-old girl on a horse on that family farm. And I realized, wow, you were with me 15 years ago with your mom in my office. I couldn't see it, but you were there. And so, folks, the message I want to bring to you tonight is we have to live in the reality of our children's future. We have to start asking ourselves, what does their reality look like? Okay? And I think that's what we do. And so, after I got elected, I was in the House for a year, and then a year later, I'm in the Senate with a guy named Brad Zahn. Do you guys know Brad Zahn? Anybody? I know Steve. I know you do. Okay. Well, and another guy named Rick Bertrand, and do you guys know Jake Chapman? Okay. Well, the four of us really wanted the heartbeat bill. So you know what we did? We said to leadership, and they weren't going to give us the heartbeat bill. See, sometimes there's speeches and sometimes there's reality, okay? Sometimes speeches and then reality, and they said, we don't have enough votes in the House. A lot of those guys run pro-life, but they don't want to have to take a pro-life vote because they're afraid they won't get reelected. Okay, that's reality. So you know what we did? We said, I'll tell you what, if you don't give us the heartbeat bill, you don't get a budget. 2:30 in the morning, 2:20 in the morning, 2 nights later, we were debating the heartbeat bill. We got it done. They made me the Senate Veterans Affairs Chair. I was asked by a group of 90 veterans to visit the Iowa Veterans Home because they were very upset. And I went out, Marshalltown, drove out there with Senator Jeff Edler. We walk into the cafeteria, and there's 90 men, all in wheelchairs, visibly upset. And I said, are you guys getting beat up? And they said, no. And I said, are you being financially exploited? And they said, no. I said, well, what's up? What's the matter? I said, are you afraid or concerned about a threat of retaliation? And they said, yes. And they pretty much every one of them raised their hand. I was like, what are you guys concerned about? They put 4 of our friends in the Alzheimer's ward for complaining about losing their cigarettes. What? They put 4 of our friends in the Alzheimer's ward for complaining about losing their cigarettes. And the commandant, who was not supposed to be listening, he was right there. And I looked at him and I said, you are going to take us to those 4 men right now. And we made them take us. First 3 guys, clear, no issue. We get to the 4th guy, they wouldn't let us see him. We were waiting outside the door 10 minutes. Finally, they let us in to see him. He was drugged. He was on another planet. His pupils, his whole eyeball was jet black. He wasn't with us. Now, folks, that's a hard reality. We turned that commandant in. The Ombudsman's office said, nothing wrong here, nothing to see. The Department of Inspections and Appeals said, oh yeah, there is. He got fired 3 months later for stealing $100,000. He should have been fired right away. They told me about the Veterans Trust Fund. They said, I said, what is that for? They said, well, we give the interest from the $30 million to the needy veterans. And I said, that's great. That's a great idea. How much interest are you giving the veterans? And they said, 0.8%. And I was like, I thought it was for the needy veterans. Somebody's making some very nice money on this veterans' needy money. Well, I went to the treasurer and I said, you manage the IPERS retirement deal, don't you? I said, what are you getting them? She said, oh, about 10%. Why can't you do that for these guys? 2 days later, she called me. She said, I can. That became the law 2 years later. They now make 10 times as much money. Now, why tell you those stories? Because, folks, I'm not just a pretty face, in case you haven't noticed. Okay? I do what I say I'm going to do. All right? My mom used to say that to me as a kid. I got an active shooter bill done. I got a senior property tax bill done. So if you're 70 years old and some of you look like you might just almost be there, you can go down to the courthouse, and if you make less than 2.5 times the federal poverty level, you can get your property taxes frozen even though the valuation keeps going up. That's a good thing. I wrote one of the first gender identity bills so they wouldn't be teaching our kids gender identity. And I wrote the bathroom bill so the boys would go in the boys' room and the girls would go in the girls' room. Okay? Yeah, imagine that. Like we need a law for that, right? It's crazy. All right. So when I look at the situation we find ourselves in, I think our government right now has forgotten what Abraham Lincoln said to us at Gettysburg. Do you remember what he said? That we're to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people. I don't think that's the case any longer. I think Reagan's right. I don't think government's the solution. I think government's the problem. And you know something? That's something we all know to be true. So let's look at it. I'm going to give you 3 simple things to consider that honestly, government is the problem. How is it the problem? Have you guys noticed how much your housing's gone up? 60% since 2019. Did you know the price of houses have gone up 45% since COVID? Do you see how that kind of snuck in under the radar? Do you know the Federal Reserve's monetary policies during COVID caused that to happen? That was not a market reality. That was something engineered. Folks, the Federal Reserve has to be held accountable. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the problem is this: government created that spike in housing to where young families can't buy a house. That was created by government, okay? Are you happy with your health care? Are you? I'm not. I mean, I do some medical malpractice, and I can tell you unequivocally, our health care is like at an all-time low. How did it get there? What did it start with? When did it go bad? Do we have any nurses in here? We got one. Hey, did Obamacare improve nursing? You look pretty sure of yourself. No. It didn't improve it. My wife left 30 years of nursing because of Obamacare. So you know what it did? It took the health care out of the hands of the physicians, didn't it? You now have to pre-authorize stuff. You know what else it did? Your premiums went up 200%. You got less and you pay twice as much. That is what happens when you create a monopoly. We lose our voice and we're treated terribly by monopoly markets. You know who's treated pretty badly right now? Those guys who farm the corn. They're not being treated too well right now in the inputs. And let's talk about the student loans for a second. Do you guys have grandkids? Are they going to college? Did you know our good friend B.O. federalized, monopolized student loans? The only entity our kids can borrow their money from to go to college is the federal government. Did you know the federal government makes $60 billion a year on that? Did you know that their average principal has gone up 200%? And did you know that the interest doubled? Did you know on average it's going to take them 20 years to pay it off? Now here's the point. You almost doubled the cost of houses. You doubled the cost of our health insurance. You doubled the cost of student loans and you made them harder to pay off. What's the common denominator? The government. And you know why it is that way? Because there is a lot of money to be made by banks and insurance companies and corporations that use politicians. Do you know what the difference between a conservative Republican and a rhino is? Anybody? A conservative Republican knows his Constitution. A rhino knows his donors. That's the difference. Big government and big business got married, and we're the ones paying the credit card bill, folks. We've got the best government money can buy right now. And boy, has it been bought. Did you know that 92% of Ashley Hinson's PAC donors are from out of state? Did you know that 63% of her individual donors are from out of state? I'm doing the math. Are you? What does that mean? It means we probably don't get priority on the representation end. That's what it means. There's a reason why corporations invest hundreds of millions of dollars in politics. You know why? Because to them, it's an investment with a great ROI, a great return on investment. And in this process, we've lost our voice because money is driving the bus. Listen, I'm a conservative Republican. I'm a Milton Friedman. I was an economics major. I like money. Just don't take all of my money and we'll get along fine. If that's the situation we find ourselves in right now. And you know something? If we didn't have President Trump right now, where would we be? He's the only guy who stood up for the middle class on tips, on overtime, on Social Security. Did you guys ever see? I never saw that happen before. And I think he's right about these things. So what would I do? I think we have to stabilize the value of a dollar. I think we need to look at going to a gold-backed currency. You want to know why? Because the government has limitless power over the value of every dollar you own. That can't stand. You know why? We don't have a voice in the value of our money. We don't have a voice. The Federal Reserve is not accountable to anybody. We have to put the dollar back in the marketplace where our voice in the market defines the value and not arbitrarily by the government. Either that or we need to cap the money supply. We need to get free markets back in the America that began with free markets, that reached the zenith of its power with free markets. Because free markets mean freedom. When we have a voice in the marketplace, we have a voice in the political space. We need to deregulate. We need to remove barriers to entry so we got more lockers for our farmers. And we need to prosecute collusion with antitrust laws. And we need to stay the course with this America First agenda. We're supposed to be a nation of wealth and not debt. Debt isn't our destiny, wealth is. And thank God we have a president who knows that, who's working towards that. We need our borders defended. We need to protect our intellectual property, and we need to stay out of never-ending wars. Because here's the deal. We all know that the future of our children is our responsibility. The biggest threat to their future is the size of this government and who is running this government. I'm Jim Carlin. I can be reached at carlinforussenate.com. And we need financial support because we're not in the club. If you want a voice, I want you to do the same thing the corporations do. Write me a check. Write me a check or donate online because that's who we're competing with. If you want to be heard, I'll give you my cell phone number. I would be honored to represent you, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you. Yep, absolutely.
Doc, you got a question? You going to comment on the CO2 pipeline?
Sure. Be glad to. Do you guys know what he's talking about when he says CO2 pipeline? Do you know who the billionaire guy behind the scenes is? Bruce who? Bruce Rastetter. He makes a lot of donations. He's made over $40,000 in donations to Ashley Hinson. He made a very generous donation to the governor that vetoed our private property rights. $160,000. Now, folks, our constitutional rights, our freedom, our private property should not be defined by campaign donations. They should be defined by the Constitution that we took an oath, that we swore to protect and defend. That's how this job is supposed to be defined. But we have a process with super PACs and all kinds of ways to give corporations just a stronghold on how this process is run. I actually work with some people. I started a thing called the Iowa Liberty Network. We had 12 senators work with us. Kevin Alonso is the guy who replaced me. He led the effort to make that bill happen. Thank God they passed it over in the House. They did their job. It got stalled in the Senate. Then it got passed through the Senate. And then it got vetoed. Which I think there's going to be another conversation this year. I don't know how that's going to shape out. But here's what I can tell you with absolute confidence. If there were not billions of tax dollars in tax credits, that thing wouldn't even exist. There's a lot of money to be made. It's taxpayer money. And I vehemently oppose private sector taking of private property. Thanks.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I know that sex trafficking is on the rise. And
Right.
I've learned recently that Iowa's third in the
Right. Well, when I served in the Iowa Senate, I don't know if you guys know this, but the first year I was in the Senate, I found out that in the entire state of Iowa, we have 3 field investigators for minor sex trafficking. I asked for 2. I came back the next year. I said, can I just have 1? I didn't get 1 from the Justice Budget Subcommittee. I came back the following year. I said, you know what? We need a task force. And I worked really hard. Our task force mirrored Nebraska's. We had bipartisan unanimous support in the Iowa Senate, and it never made it to full committee in the House because of politics. Here's the thing. Imagine you're that 6-year-old girl who's being raped multiple times a day in horrible ways. Wouldn't you want to do everything you could to stop that? Geez, I would. I'd do everything I could to stop that. And you need somebody there who's actually going to care about that stuff or care about how seniors are treated. And that's what I did in the Iowa Senate.
Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Jim. Thank you.